Tahiti, the pillage of paradise. The arrival of Western civilization brought forth an avalanche of reform to Tahiti's independent, peaceful, and self-sustained society. The established monarchy of Tahiti was lured and tricked by cunning political leaders from the West. Well-meaning Catholic and Protestant missionaries destroyed many of Tahiti's traditional beliefs and cultural traditions and served as a front for France's military. Outsiders introduced diseases to Tahitians for which they had no immunity. All of these factors contributed to the final exploitation of Tahiti by France, a revolution which caused the loss of Tahiti's rights of self-determination. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Je suis l'amiral de Petit-Thouars. I am the French admiral who is protecting the territory of French Polynesia from the British. I have just arrived from the islands of Nukuhiva, another French colony in the Pacific which I have annexed, and it is now August 1842. After all France has done for Tahiti, I simply cannot understand why the native revolutionaries question our motives to help them. We have helped the natives revolutionize the way of life by eliminating human sacrifices, improving moral standards, eliminating heathen religions, and infanticide. 45 years ago, the Reverend George Pritchard of the London Missionary Society reported seeing natives killing their innocent babies within 15 minutes of its birth. In 1797, the Reverend George William Ellis dedicated much of his life to translate the Bible in the Tahitian language, created a written language for them, and destroyed their pagan worship of wooden gods. They should thank us for helping them, and not fight against us. We have brought massive firearms and gunships to protect them against the British and other powers. If they know what is good for them, they should submit themselves to our authority, so we can improve their standard of living, and they will no longer be considered as heathens. They have so many natural resources, such as sandalwood, fishing, whales. They could plant cotton, coffee, and sugarcane and become rich. All we want to do is raise our flag on their islands to show that we will protect them. We are trying to revolutionize Tahiti so they can enjoy the same living standards as the rest of the civilized world. The French have placed Queen Pomare IV under house arrest for failing to pay protection money to the French military. In reaction, she sought an audience to voice her concerns. I'm Queen Pomare IV. France has so many good excuses to help us, but what are their true intentions? At this time, the kind French government has had me confined to my bed. I have written many times to the French King Louis-Philippe, demanding the restoration of our power and authority. I would like to share part of the letter with you. My sovereign power has been violated, and my lands have been seized by our admiral with an armed force, because I have been accused of not regarding the treaty, which was written on the 7th day of November 1843. I strenuously protest against this harsh conduct of your admiral, but I trust you with confidence in your compassion, your justice, and your kindness towards me, a powerless sovereign, and that you will deliver me from my troubles. I ask of you that you may restore me the sovereign power and the government of my forefathers. We insist on keeping control of our own land and practicing our religions. Our treaties with the French have been disregarded and violated several times. The French have sent 500 troops in our capital and hoisted their flag under the protection of their many guns. What right do they have to take possession of our country by force? The French wanted to control Tahiti because of its ideal location in the middle of the South Pacific. It is the ideal port of call for all of the boats and ships traveling across the Pacific. But does that give them the right to take away our freedom? The French have no right to enslave our people. Tahiti is our original land, and we have the right of self-determination. How can the rest of the world stand idly by while we suffer such injustice? Freedom and independence are our cry. The Catholics and the London Missionary Society played an important role in taking us over, because they both insisted that I sign the decree of abdication. They both tried to change our lives by putting an end to all of our religions. As a result, our traditional culture has started to crumble. Is this the beginning of the end of our traditions, culture, and self-identity? Their diseases have almost killed us all. In July 1854, Tahiti was swept by an epidemic of measles complicated by outbreaks of dysentery, influenza, tuberculosis, pneumonia, smallpox, scarlet fever. Thousands of us have died. Much of our culture, beliefs, and ability to defend ourselves are lost due to these introduced diseases. France has also introduced alcohol to us, a clever ploy to poison our minds with worldly appetites and to weaken our ability to see what is really happening to us. All of these factors contributed to the final exploitation of Tahiti by France. We are now living on borrowed ideology and have become dependent on the French for our economic survival in Tahiti. 150 years have passed. Tahitians are still struggling to regain their freedom and independence from France. They call for reform. I am Oscar Timaru, a modern protester for Tahiti's independence movement and the mayor of the village of Fa'a'a. Tahiti has the right of self-determination and right to control itself, just like any other country. Tahiti was a sovereign kingdom recognized in the International Community of Nations, but it was invaded and occupied by France against the will of the people. Should not the great wrong done to an independent kingdom by an abuse of the authority of France be undone by restoring the legitimate government? Anything short of that will not satisfy the demands of justice. We demand that France honor its own laws, customary international laws, as well as United Nations policies. The French have treated us as rubbish, as rats, and now you see what happens. We question the West's notion of progress. We see that half of the world is starving, the rich getting richer, the environmental destruction worsening. There are still places in the world where life is not based on money, but on nature. Perhaps we should look there. Captain James Cook said it best as he left Tahiti for the last time in 1767. In his journal he wrote, quote, I directed my course to the west, and we took our leave of these happy islands and the good on them. It would have been far better for this poor people never to have known us, unquote. Tahiti is just another victim of a colonial power who's used force, lies, and contempt to pillage your peaceful, non-threatening society. There will always be an ongoing struggle by Tahitians to free themselves from the unjust shackles of a foreign power until justice is served. All nations and peoples have the right to choose their own political destiny, and how and by whom they will be democratically governed. The forceful imposition of an unpopular government by invading foreign powers is contrary to international law and modern political standards. Until my last breath, I will always remain steadfast in my commitment to regain the kingdom of Tahiti. Yamana Tununa'a, Yamana Tununa'a. Power to the people! Power to the people! Tahiti is one of the last French colonies remaining in the world. The colonial rule of France revolutionized Tahiti. It changed its political, social, and economic structures for years to come. The French have invested billions of dollars building homes, schools, and hospitals in Tahiti, but the end result has caused Tahitians to become economically dependent on France. Milinani Trask, an active supporter for Hawaiian sovereignty, stated, "The European economy breeds dependency, not self-sufficiency." Although France contributed greatly to modernizing Tahiti and boosting their economy, self-determination and independence have become more important factors.
It's The Conversation on Hawaii Public Radio. Good morning, I'm Beth Ann Kozlovich. His list is pages long, and he's none too happy that the reasons on it and in the position paper of the Aloha Posse may not be enough. But Christian Wilson is a dad on a mission to save the social studies graduate requirement from changing, and he joins us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Wilson. Thank you for being here.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, both of your girls are out of school. And so why are you fighting so hard to keep the social studies graduation requirement?
Because I'd like other students to receive the same opportunities they had.
And what were some of those opportunities that you find so important?
Well, some of the enrichment programs that they have at Kahuku High School include History Day, Con, Model UN, and they have speech and debate. But History Days really helped my children. It opened the world up to them.
And how would that be affected if the graduate credits were moved from 4 to 3?
Well, I think they'd have less time to prepare because half of the students that go from Hawaii to the National History Day at the University of Maryland are from Kahuku High School.
Okay, so they would be really undercut by not having that happen.
Yes.
What else would be sliced?
Well, I think, let's see, there's also the We the People program, and I think it's very important that students learn more about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, so they can know what their legal rights are.
We talk a lot about not having civics classes anymore. Once upon a time, usually in 6th or 7th grade, that started. Middle school for sure, certainly by high school. And from what you're describing, a lot of these things back into civics education. How concerned are you that we're not going to be putting out kids who know anything about the place in which they live and their government?
Well, I'm really concerned about it. My youngest daughter, her We the People class, went to Waikiki a few months ago, and they interviewed people out off the street and just quizzed them about their general knowledge about the Constitution. And she was surprised that most adults don't know about the Bill of Rights and other basic information about the Constitution.
I mean, this sounds worse than something we might have seen on Leno. But what is it that people told her?
Well, that's where we got the idea from, is from the jaywalking segment. And she asked questions like, how many terms did Benjamin Franklin serve? And, Benjamin Franklin was never president.
And
so
people
some trick questions, right? They were saying 2 terms and things like that.
What else did you hear?
It's just, I'd say half of the people answered questions correctly, but it was still discouraging. And if we're not teaching our students, they're going to grow up to be ignorant.